Today's show is brought to you by Audible. Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook with a 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/itslayspodcast and browse the unmatched selection of audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/itslayspodcast. Let's get into it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
You like scary movies?
Uh-huh.
What's your favorite scary movie?
These sick fucks. You've seen one too many, Rowdy.
I said, don't you blame the movies! Movies don't create psychos! Movies make psychos more creative!
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm bringing your sociology book to psychology class, Rowan.
Hi, it's Xylia.
And it's stale highway gas station coffee Mike.
And we are back, the first episode of 2020. It's almost been a year since we started the podcast.
Almost. I was thinking about that the other day.
I
could vomit.
Who would have thought that a year later people would still listen to us?
That's a good question.
What are you guys doing with your lives?
I mean, even I'm sick of me, so I don't know,
So hopefully everyone had a good holiday, good new year. It's kind of weird. We said before we started recording that we're both recording like in new spaces, so hopefully everything ends up sounding okay.
It's been a long time since we recorded.
Yeah.
Lots have changed.
Lots of change. Me and Xylia have our own place now. We no longer live in a one bedroom like vagabonds.
Yeah.
I love the word vagabond.
It's such a pleasant word. Makes me feel real fancy.
Very, like Robin Hood. I don't know, and I just love words that begin with V. Very pleasing.
Would you like to
my...
list off many V words that you enjoy?
I am not going to do that because it's not going to be fit.
That will be a side podcast.
Just Mike reading the dictionary.
Just the V section.
Just the V's.
Just the V's. I'm trying to think what's new. Yeah, we're in our new place. We have 2 new kittens. So any noise in the background is not our fault. It's our cat's fault.
Unfortunately, poor Juicy
R.I.P.
passed away about a month ago, and yeah, so that was fun. I'm not laughing because it was actually fun, but yeah, it was pretty sad. But we have 2 new cats. We just got 2 days ago.
We thought that was a good idea. And,
the apartment was way too quiet without cats, so
good time. Now it's way too loud all the time.
Yeah, but they're sweeties.
Well, you need 2 cats to make up for the fact that Juicy was full of Satan's power. Right? And it was just, yeah.
So far, we there's no signs of demonic possession or anything.
Not yet.
Thus far.
They had the world's worst names at
the worst.
shelter.
They weren't the worst.
They were named Crowley and
Greta.
Greta's alright.
Now, Greta, I think, is probably from, like, Greta the Environmentalist, which, like, fair. But Crowley, should I tell the sad story?
Alistair Crowley?
No, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was like, that's actually really cool.
If people don't like anything that is sad to do with animals, maybe like skip forward. But basically, so Crowley, which is now Church, was a little baby, a farmer found him out on a field, and he was like teeny tiny, and he's orange, so they thought he was like a baby chicken. But basically, crows were like trying to eat him and attacking him and stuff, so he like saved him and like the guy had to like kick a crow, and like so he saved him. So they were gonna name him Crow at the shelter, but they're like, no, maybe we'll name him Crowley instead. But now he's Church.
Yeah, so my one rule on new cat was that we got to name one of the cats a cool horror name. So it took a lot of thinking, and then we landed on Church.
So Rowan got to pick one name, and I got to pick the other. So I picked for the other Maud after Maud Lewis, who is a folk art. Well, not anymore. She's passed away many years ago, but she's a folk artist from Nova Scotia, and she's like one of my favorites.
She's iconic.
And, yeah, she's super iconic, and Maud looks like a Maud. Like it suits her.
Very. And Church looks like
a church.
So Maud is going to be like prematurely old, is what you're saying.
Pretty much.
Church looks like he just left Pet Cemetery.
Yeah. He has like little hair growing out of his ears that's like woo, like flinging out of his ears. It's really cute.
Wow, so y'all didn't go with Damien, like didn't want to tempt fate, did you?
No. So, question.
Oh, yes, the question.
I figured I needed to come up with a question. So I wanted to know your 2020 movie resolutions. Is there like certain kinds of movies that you want to watch more of in 2020? Is there certain movies you want to see coming in 2020? Maybe like directors, anything that you can think of that would be a resolution.
I've been really falling behind on my, several years ago, it was just 24/7, movies on loop, ones I haven't seen, ones I had, and, every type of movie, like kind of trash, high art, from Sweden, but I've really fallen behind the last few years, not just on catching up with new movies, but on watching all the classics and, hidden gems from years past that I normally would have kind of jumped at the chance to see and like maybe had like a viewing party with a few people like yourselves. And I realized that, I haven't really been watching enough new movies lately, so I kind of figured this year I might just try to watch more and try to, see things that my friends are giving good word of mouth, like Little Women, for example, or whatever. It's just, there's just so much out there that I'm missing out on, and I feel like I need to stop shutting myself off from film as much as I have been and get back in there. Jump in the fucking pool of lava. Why not?
I've kind of made a few myself. Like Mike, I kind of feel like I'm not watching as much as I used to. I'm watching more like TV series, things like that, which are great. And, I love watching like great television shows. But, I mean, my passion's obviously like film. I enjoy kind of the beginning, middle, and end that I can complete in, 2 hours or whatever. So it's definitely just watching, not just more film, but maybe more dramas, stuff like that. Kind of not just watching horror or superhero stuff. And then I also have like kind of a horror resolution that I would like this year to watch some more horror films written and directed by women. And that's kind of, I'm going to actively look for that and see what I see, and hopefully see some great films, and who knows, maybe review a couple.
I love that.
Zoya? Oh, thank you.
So I guess mine would be to get kind of back into watching a lot more like independent films, because I always used to watch independent films, and then I got like, I've seen so much stuff on Netflix, which like there are some like gems and like independent to like big films on there, but I feel like for me Netflix has kind of like run its course. A lot of the stuff they put up, I'm just like, I don't really want to watch that. I guess independent films of like substance, I guess you would say. And then I feel like this whole year I've pretty much only watched horror movies, which is fine. But also, yeah, I'd like to like also watch other things too.
So, we kicking off this year with Mike's pick. We did something different, so I said this is the first episode of the new year. So, we ended up releasing Black Christmas on that kind of New Year's Day, but that was recorded for Christmas. So, this is our first episode we're recording in the new year, and I left off on the last episode. We didn't tell people what we were going to be reviewing, so it's a surprise to everyone. And it was Mike's pick, so Mike, please announce it.
It was indeed. My pick for 2020, blessed be, is 1989's anthology film After Midnight.
And boy, I feel like we have lots to talk about. So let's start by getting into the trailer, and then we will come back with all the goodness that is listening to us talk, I guess. So let's get into it.
Go ahead. Scare me.
You afraid of the house?
I thought you said there's nothing to worry about.
I don't like this.
Let's get out of here. I'm all alone here, and I don't think this guy's kidding around.
What are you afraid of?
I wonder if he really used hedge clippers to chop off their heads.
Come and get me.
Alex,
Allison, help me!
do it!
Are you ready to be scared?
After I watched the trailer, I wasn't quite sure where this movie was going because there were so many random, there was like running dogs and like, I feel like there was like a head somewhere.
The trailer kind of threw me off.
I mean, these are things that are in the movie, so...
It definitely is. I was just like, how did these go together?
Yeah, because we did watch the trailer before we watched the film.
Yeah.
Since, because I don't know, were you watching a download copy or?
Yes.
Yes. So I bought the Scream Factory.
Of fucking course.
Of it. So, and this Scream Factory is kind of their bear release. Yeah. So all there was an interview with the lead actress and the trailer. So we had said, well, we'll watch the trailer. Because, you know, I always stick the trailer in the episodes. And sometimes we've seen it, sometimes we haven't. So yeah, the trailer I liked it. It was exactly, once I saw the trailer, I'm like, of course Mike would pick this.
It's a very Mike selection.
It is.
I will agree.
It's a signature Mike selection. In fact, how Criterion's, when they come out and you buy them, they have like the sticker that's like director approved.
Yeah.
They need, like, Scream Factory needs to talk to you, so they have like signature Mike selection.
Mm-hmm. I just need my own like imprint.
That's right.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be called. I don't have anything witty off the top of my head, but it would just be like trash can selections or something.
I'm down with that. I myself am a trash can selection, so it's fitting. I'll take it. Listen, if it's gonna be my namesake, my baby.
So let's get into the IMDb bio. College class, Psychology of Fear, has a new scary teacher. You have to feel fear to understand it. One student pees himself. The scary stuff is moved to the teacher's house when scary stories are told.
I feel like that's the longest synopsis we've heard so far.
It feels like a third grader about to have a stroke wrote this.
Oh my god.
I was gonna say,
they have to randomly insert that somebody pisses themselves in the description.
It's a really weird write-up, because it's probably one of the longer ones we've read, and it seems very detailed, but it isn't really. It's just like random information.
It's true.
3
and like
random
Mike
plot
said,
points, yeah.
Yeah, just so you know, there's pee. I'm sure if we looked up the keywords, peeing in pants would be one of them.
Believe it or not, it actually didn't make the plot keywords.
What?
And I assumed there would be like, self-urination, mullet piss, or something like that in there. Because, they're always absolutely demented, but this was a very tame. There was only 9 or 10 keywords, decapitation, things like that.
I am glad that we get a little sneak peek at the beginning of 2020 of the return of Mike's keywords.
Oh yes, they're gonna make a comeback, trust me, when you least expect it.
So, as always, before we get into the meat and potatoes, let's talk about the directors, the cast. There's actually quite a bit to talk about with this little indie delight.
Yeah, weirdly, it's like studded with people and elements that kind of rise it above its C-grade late 80s cable TV toss-off.
So, directed by Ken and Jim Wheats, the Wheats brothers. And did not recognize the name till I started looking into it, and then I was like, whoa, these guys have like actually directed some stuff.
They've done some great stuff.
So I had written down, to me, probably, in my opinion, which would be the most well-known, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master.
One of my favorite films ever.
The Fly 2.
A movie that exists.
A movie that exists. They did a made-for-TV movie called Ewok, The Battle for Endor. I remember seeing those as a kid. They did like a bunch of Ewok mini-movies and stuff. Probably more in recent, I say recent with kind of quotations, they wrote Pitch Black.
Oh, yes.
So, I mean, and that got
Pitch Black, is that the one with LL Cool J?
No, that had
how
Vin
dare
Diesel.
you? That was one of Vin Diesel's first starring roles. Like, before anybody knew who he was, we were like...
I don't think I've ever seen it.
It is absolutely spectacular. It's one of those, like, I mean, you know, I guess shortly after that, he really took off as, you know, like, kind of a more household name and an action guy. And they did several sequels to it, which, you know, were kind of big hits and featured him more prominently. But the first one, it's just the Pitch Black, nothing that mentions his character's name like the sequels did. It is this bizarrely underrated gem of like a sci-fi horror movie. It's almost literally perfect. Like, it's definitely probably Vin Diesel's greatest accomplishment as an actor.
I was gonna say, like, I mean, it's kind of beloved enough that it makes its rounds on television, like, all the time now. It's always on, like, TBS or...
Oh,
I
absolutely.
always see it, like, at work, we have cable and televisions, and, like, it's always on the television. So, who knows? Maybe someday we'll review Pitch Black.
I was gonna not spoil it, but that's definitely gonna be one of my picks. So, spoiler alert. Sometime this year... Pitch Black is coming at you.
2002 or something.
I think it came out like 2000.
Yeah.
It was 2000, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I vaguely remember it.
It did spawn, like, I want to say at least 2 sequels in movies, but they did a bunch of video games that were really popular of it too.
Yeah,
and it was all based
on
Vin Diesel's character, who was really... I mean, he was a main character in the first one, but it didn't focus on him. Most of the time... You know, he was just sort of like in the background while other things were happening. And then, of course, they're like, oh, look, this, you know, muscly guy who we can market as an action star. Let's just make him the focus for the next 4 movies.
And that's what I had written down for the Wheats brothers. So let's talk about some of the cast. So the film's highlight star is Xylia McRitter.
I think it's McWhirter.
Is it McWhirter or McRitter? I don't know. I was going to say, it doesn't really matter, because when I looked at her filmography, the only movie I've seen that she's been in is Strangeland, which was Dee Schneider's horror film and comic that he made. So I thought
I forgot that even existed, actually.
I used to own it on, I think I still have it on DVD. But apparently she was like one of the stars of that. And other than that, like, you know, she just kind of did like, she'd be in an episode of like...
Murder, She Wrote or something.
Of Murder, yeah, something like that. Just on television. So, I mean, I have a whole list that we can talk about. Jeez, I'm trying to think. Let's go with Rami Zanda, I think is how he says his last name. He plays the professor. So, I didn't recognize him, but apparently he was in like multiple episodes of Dallas and Melrose Place.
Ooh, Melrose Place.
My mom and I used to watch Melrose Place when I was a kid.
I mean, it makes sense to me. Like, most of these, I assume most of these people were like soap opera TV people. Then we have, hopefully, why do I always murder people's names? I feel like it's my job on the podcast to just ruin it. Then we have Judy, is it Aronson.
Aronson sounds right.
Aronson. So she is actually, I did recognize her. She's from Friday the 13th, final chapter.
I find that you recognize the face, but to me, her voice more than anything makes me think of the other horror movies she's been in. She's got that kind of like bit of a husky voice, and you really remember it. It's very unique.
It was a lot, to me it was the faces. It was like a lot of faces I recognized.
Yeah.
And I was just like, who are these people? I know these people. She was also in Weird Science, and she was also in Beverly Hills 90210. Like we said, we weren't wrong to assume they were in a lot of like drama, soap opera.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we're
stuff.
hitting all the late 80s, early 90s soap opera, primetime soap opera, like, gems here now.
The one that only gets one shout out, but I thought it was a pretty badass credit, was Tracy Wells. She wasn't really in much, but one of her very first credit was playing a schoolgirl in the original Gremlins.
Oh, good for her.
I thought that was a pretty tough thing in your filmography. Now, I know Mike would, if I didn't bring it up right away, Mike would be very angry with me.
Yes, you know I'm itching here.
Penelope Sudrow was in this. Who was the one I immediately recognized. And I was like, I didn't even have to think about, really, where she's from. Because the minute I saw her face, all I thought was, welcome to primetime, bitch.
You see her face and then you picture it getting smashed into a TV.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3, which, another movie I know Mike adores.
Yes, it's my everything. If I could take one movie to the afterlife with me to watch over and over, it would be that one.
That is one of the better ones, so I don't disagree with that.
And it's funny that, this movie has two consecutive Nightmare on Elm Street connections. We've got her from number 3, and then Ken and Jim Wheat, who worked on the screenplay for part 4. So
yeah, well, I thought it was interesting because the only other feature on the Scream Factory disc was an interview with the Jillian woman, and she was talking about how she was actually starring in a McCormick film before this that the Wheat brothers were directing, and they literally just brought the entire crew over to do this movie.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of this crew was filming, I can't remember the name of it. It wasn't like a big film, but she just said they were doing this McCormick movie. Anyway, let's get into the rest of them. Mark McClure's in this. I thought that was big.
I mean, it's a thing.
It's a thing, I guess.
Listen, I can't get excited about dudes. They're so boring.
So he played Jimmy Olsen in Superman 1 to 4 with Christopher Reeves. He also played Jimmy Olsen in the Supergirl movie from
which
the
is
80s.
The greatest of all the Super X films.
And he had a cameo appearance in the Justice League movie from a couple years ago.
He did, I forgot about that.
And he also played one of the McFlys in Back to the Future 2 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So he had a couple big ones.
That's some good nerd cred right there.
Oh yeah, exactly. And to me, probably the two biggest actresses in this was Marg Helgenberger.
Lover, queen.
That's who Xylia noticed right away.
That's the only person I recognize in this whole movie.
What?
Yeah.
So, obviously, everyone, including Xylia, recognizes her from CSI.
Yeah.
For like 10 years.
But she's done so much. I mean, her horror cred, hello, Tommyknockers, like...
The Tommyknockers, she was in Species 1 and 2. She was in Bad Boys. She was in Erin Brockovich.
She's one underrated ginger, I gotta say.
She definitely has some hits under her belt. But possibly the one person that has more hits under her belt. Mike?
Oh, you better be talking about Miss Pamela Adlon, a.k.a. Bobby Hill.
Bobby Hill from King of the Hill.
Louie,
the voice acting alone, the credits are crazy.
It's like hundreds and hundreds.
Adventure Time. She plays Gunther in Adventure Time.
Like, she is a voice actor, like, legend.
Yeah. Rugrats.
Who is this person in the movie?
She's the brunette friend of the main girl.
When they're going to class.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, like, let me name off a couple more. Bobby's World, Recess. She did, what's that kid's name? Spagnoletti or...
What? Spinelli?
Spagnoletti.
What the fuck?
She's also in, like, most of the seasons of Big Bang Theory.
Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, Bob's Burgers, Grease 2.
Yep, she has her own series now, Better Things.
Yes, I was going to say Better Things. And obviously, like Mike said, King of the Hill is what I think she's most known for.
Yeah, and it's funny because she is one of these people, and X's comment about her actually sort of like hits right on the nose, because she is one of these people who has an insane career. Like, just decades long, is in everything, voice acting, like, live action. You look at her credits and it's not just, like, one, episode of some random TV show in the 90s. Like, she's literally in everything and, like, does voices in everything. And nobody knows who she is.
It's true.
Underappreciated.
She's so good, too. Like, she's so fucking charismatic. Like,
we appreciate her.
Yeah, good.
So let's get into it. And we're going to start off with favorite scenes, as always. I want to kick it to Xylia, because I see a smile on her face.
You do?
I do. What was your favorite scenes?
I don't know yet. I keep forgetting we do these segments. You guys go first.
All right, Mike, we'll go to you.
Okay. There was a couple, but one scene that I liked, and it's hard doing a scene in something that's comprised of like the shorts, but one of my favorites is always in the last segment when Marg Helgenberger is doing her like answering service job, and she's in that like dark little room and like plugging in the things and getting the creepy phone calls, and is there by herself, and it's at night, and it's just so moody and atmospheric, and like there's something just so late 80s, early 90s about it, and I've just always really enjoyed that.
Weren't you also like an operator before?
Yeah, and yes, I was. So I've literally been in her position. Now, it wasn't plugging shit in from like the 50s, but I did the work all night, midnights, and in the building by myself, except for a security guard. Actually, that's probably, I never even thought about that, actually, because I haven't seen this movie in years, but yeah, I used to literally be Marg Helgenberger. Mark it down, like, Mike was Marg. Like, it's...
That one really connected with you.
It did, even before, I guess maybe when I saw it when I was a youngster, I knew that one day I was going to be connecting calls in a building by myself at night for a bunch of fucking degenerates.
I was going to say, too, as we talk about our favorite scenes, I don't know if we explicitly said that this is an anthology film, if you haven't gotten that yet. So there is multiple stories and like one overarching story to tie everything together. So if you're a listener, and for some reason you listen to these episodes, I'm looking at you, Cecily, and don't watch the movies, you're
gonna be very confused.
You're gonna be very confused.
Probably no more than usual, though.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess my favorite, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I don't know if this really like counts as a favorite scene, but I was kind of like, it was more like, what? Oh, that's interesting. When the dogs are like chasing the girls, and after they've like killed the girl, and the friends are like, see ya, like I'm just gonna fucking leave you here.
Love that scene.
And then they like go to that warehouse and they blow the dogs up. I was just like, they do it with such ease, just like blowing dogs up. I just thought that was so like...
And, like, piecing out on their friend who's, like,
I know.
mauled by dogs in the middle of the road.
I know.
Although, to be fair, if I was in their place, I probably would have, like, said, oh, well, she's dead. And she, like, starts going, no, I'm not. It's like, she's dead, guys. Let's get the fuck out of here. Because she was so fucking annoying. I would have just been like,
she
leave her
was
to the dogs.
Super annoying. I was just,
literally throw her to the wolves.
I was gonna say, I can imagine, like, not even seeing the dogs yet, and Mike would just already have her out of the car. Like, oh, she's gone, guys.
Well, there was actually a moment when Penelope Sudrow got in to drive, and then she went in to get in on that side, and she's like, no, go over to the other side. And I can picture her, like, going, lock the door quick.
Just go.
Yeah. She's like, bitch, I'm not letting you in the driver's side.
And this girl's the dummy that got out. So, I don't know. She was just, she was super annoying too, so.
And I hated her jacket.
I don't remember.
I
vaguely remember it.
The truth comes out. That's where all this hate for her is coming from, Mike. Is that damn jacket.
A horrible ensemble. And the other ones were dressed really nice, so, except for that frilly jean skirt, anyway.
Almost made them get murdered by that guy.
Oh, also,
that guy was freaky.
Side note, for anybody who's keeping track, we're gonna say side cast number 17, the names that Ro has mangled in this movie. Mark it down, everyone.
Yeah, 100%. That's another podcast.
We've got 5 entries this cast alone.
Oh, I murdered them. I absolutely murdered them. And I like it because I know that you just don't correct me because you want me to be embarrassed.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
The shade. So much shade. My favorite scene is from the first story, and it is the slow-mo shot that I literally was dying laughing at when he cuts off his wife's head when she turns around.
That is
and it kept going to his face, and it was the most ridiculous face ever made in cinema history.
It's also like he didn't stop.
Yeah, I was like, why did you just let go of the sword or whatever? And it was just like... It was just him keep swinging, and I knew deep down, I'm like, you want to cut her fucking head off.
Yes, exactly. I was like, this man never wanted to marry her. Maybe he's repressed or something, I don't know, but my theory was that he's been waiting for years. When they went to that nice restaurant on the pier that appeared to be a boat, I was thinking, he probably was hoping that she'd trip up and fall over the edge, and he'd be like, oh no. It'd be like when the dogs were eating Amy, and they're all like, peace out, she's dead, let's get rid of her. It was the same thing with him. I feel like he wanted that wonderful, charming, charismatic woman dead because he never wanted to marry her in the first place. Maybe he was pressured. Maybe he was in love with her brother and married her to get close to him. I don't know. But I feel like this is where that, like, oh, I can't stop the swing came from.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry, guys. You guys saw that it was an accident. Also, that story... I was dying the whole story because I was thinking, I wish Xylia would go this far and this intricate for a surprise birthday party for me.
I thought it was nice.
But listen, in order for this plan to work out, they all had to drop thousands of tacks in the middle of the road, knowing it would blow out 2 of this guy's tires. Also, they're like driving on like a cliff edge road, so they like hope he doesn't go off the cliff edge and that he would stop it right in front of that house.
I like how there was also like all the tacks, and then he was just like, oh, let's wait for somebody else to come help us. Well, there's all these fucking tacks.
Yeah,
like,
really.
Their tires are gonna get flat too. Like,
that is such a good point. Now I realize that my theory is correct, and that all the friends knew that he didn't really love her and wanted her dead, so they were hoping that the car would go off the road.
Oh my god.
That's the subtext of this whole segment.
Also, fun fact about that segment, I read that the house is actually 4 different houses. Like, almost every scene they shot outdoors is a different house. And then they just pieced it together.
That's true. You only see, like, the lion's share of it, like, over the trees once, and then the bottom of it is obscured by all the woods, so... That's a very good point. So you can't really see the landscape, as it were, until they're breaking in.
But yeah, that was my favorite scene.
Yeah, that was really funny.
Here's a good question. So out of, I'm gonna say the 4 stories, like, so that overarching story with the professor, and then the 3 stories that they tell, like, did you guys have a favorite story? Did you feel one was stronger?
I kind of like them all.
You like them all?
Me too, but I do have a fondness for the Marg Helgenberger final story.
Cut him deep.
Again, well, I mean, The thing I liked about all of these stories, but especially that one, is that they all reminded me of, like, short stories that I would have written when I was, like, 14.
Yeah.
You know, just this little, like, quick, silly, insubstantial, like, punch where I just had, like, one scene, and I was like, well, I'm gonna build a short story around this, like, one thing I want to write. So it'd be, like, Mrs., you know, being in her little room with the glass door, getting creepy phone calls, and it's like, okay, well, I guess I have to build a story around this to put her in there and get her out of it. But I did really like that one also because it reminded me of this old play that I read when I was in, like, junior high for a class called Sorry, Wrong Number. I think it's kind of famous.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and it's kind of very vaguely similar, and I think it was from, like, the 40s or something, or the 50s, and it was essentially, like, the call is coming from inside the house, but, like, OG. And, you know, and it involved an operator and this other woman, and a creepy phone call, and, you know, a death at the end, and it was very, like, atmospheric and, spooky, and it just really reminded me of that, and I always enjoyed that play growing up, so I don't know, maybe that's why I liked it.
I also would probably say that I thought the third one was the best, like the third short story, mostly because the first two I feel like weren't okay. So I think there's a line and it's like, oh, these are like so scary because they're so realistic, but then I felt like the first two weren't that realistic, but the third one kind of freaked me out because of my job that I've had for like a month and a half now. I like, without going into detail of what I do, but I like basically work with women that are like in abusive relationships. So I find since I've started working there, stuff like that is a lot scarier to me than it was prior. So like, and I'm like watching this guy and I'm like assessing his behaviors, and it's just like, oh. So yeah, stuff like that kind of affects me a lot more now. And I found that with like the first Black Christmas as well.
Yeah, and I know for me, like, obviously my favorite scene was from the first one. I really enjoyed the first one. Like Xylia, like, it's close and dear to my heart. Like, I wouldn't mind chopping off Xylia's head.
That's
obviously.
Nice. Fuck.
I joke. No, I really enjoyed that one, but when I asked and Xylia said, like, I did enjoy all of them, and you guys both brought up good points. Like Mike said, I liked how they were really, when you kind of brush everything aside, they were like very basic, scary stories, like with kind of like the skeleton bones of older stories, like, you know, the strange caller and the haunted house. Yep. And
the rabid dogs that you
the rabid dogs, and, you know, like the crazy dirty like homeless rapist man, which you see in like older horror films. And, like, I liked how I thought they just did a really great job that, you know, I'm not going into this movie expecting, like, Hereditary, you know? Like, I thought they did a great job, and I like the overarching story.
Yeah. Before we get into that story, can I, like, kind of tell a short story? So when what's her name? The one in CSI, Mark Helgeberger?
Yes, yeah.
She's like has a broken foot or whatever, and she's in the staircase and she falls down the stairs. Okay, in and of itself isn't funny. But when Rowan broke his ankle, he was like doing rehab at the hospital before they sent him home. And they, for some reason, decided that they would take him into the stairwell to like do rehab and teach him how to use his crutches. And nobody was supposed to like go in that stairwell, but basically all the nurses like didn't want to use the other ones, so they used as a pass through. And so Rowan was like standing in front of the door getting ready to walk down the stairs in his crutches, and this fucking nurse just like flings the door open and pushes him over. And that's all I could think about. Yeah, that's all I thought about.
I'm glad I'm here for your amusement.
Rowan his shattered foot.
It was fucked. It was just like, in retrospect, it was really funny, but at the time, we're just like, what the fuck are you doing?
I have a real serious question that I don't ask for any other movie other than this. Explain to me why you wouldn't take this class in university. Is this not like, I would be enrolled in this in like 30 seconds?
First of all, they said it's Psychology 102. This would never be an introductory psychology class.
No, absolutely not. This would be at least a like third or fourth year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the fact that it was not in a bigger lecture hall, like, I'm sorry, if it's that popular, they're going to want to cram as many students in there as they can. They are going to like fucking milk that shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, please let me know where this university is that respects money of the students and doesn't want to make it.
And I said even tenure has its limits. This guy, I don't think his practices would go over especially well these days.
Well, I'm saying, like, I expect it at least be in third year before I have a professor pretend to blow his brains out or pull a
with full on
like
exploding blood packets on the back of his head.
That guy was a freak. That guy, I was asked Rowan, I was like, does this guy have like a fear fetish or something? He's like weird. And then they end and it's, oh my god, it's just, anyway.
I mean, he's obviously like a serial killer who just so happens to teach at a university.
But I also said, like, the weirdest people I know, kind of like the most fucked up people I know, are like psychology professors are really into psychology. So
you're not wrong there.
It's true. There's a lot of psychology professors that are like do weird shit.
Listen,
Jordan Peterson,
somebody who did a degree in psychology.
I
will hesitantly agree with you.
Yeah, if something happens, I don't know, it's just weird. It's just like psychology professors are weird people. And yes, of course, there's Jordan Peterson. Let's just leave that there.
I also really enjoyed that once he got in trouble with the university, he decided to wear that sweater the next day. It was like the super like knitted preppy sweater with the collar coming out of it. I was like,
I'm not gonna lie, I really wanted it.
His sweater game, like when I saw it, I was like, Xylia probably wants all these sweaters. She's taking mental images. He's wearing the classic professor sweaters of all film ever.
Rowan always says I have professor sweaters. They're mostly cardigans, though. Wool cardigans.
Wool cardigans.
My entire closet is literally 90% wool cardigans.
Kind of like the one you're wearing right now.
Yes, exactly. I'm literally wearing one as we speak. And I'm looking at the pile of clothes on my floor, and there's 4 in that, so that need to go and wash.
The moral of the story is Mike needs to do laundry.
I do need to do laundry. I was going to, and then I thought it would be too loud and it would come out on the podcast, so.
Good thinking.
Or maybe the listeners want to listen to you do laundry. I don't know.
That might be a thing.
Another sidecast. Listen to me wash the dishes. Listening to me do my laundry.
It'll be like some weird sexual ASMR
I told
thing.
you, ASMR King right here. Like, I will guide you. I'll just like brush my teeth for 4 hours like, into the microphone.
I will say though that I thought the professor guy was like, I thought that actor did a really good job. Like, I thought he was so campy and like creepy campy.
He was so creepy.
It was like really well played. I mean, he obviously didn't study any professors like before taking the job, but I would definitely want him as a professor.
No, even though he clearly didn't, he did do a very good job of whacking his wooden pointer against the blackboard very like forcefully and like psychology of fear. Whack. Like, I must emphasize.
Just every scene with him was good. And, like, the speech, like, when he's telling the class that he got in trouble and he's just like, some don't approve of my method.
That's like what Rowan's mom says. She's like, some people do this.
I'm thinking, oh, you think? Like, you literally made a guy piss in your class.
Also, you inflicted trauma by pretending to shoot somebody.
Yeah.
Some people don't appreciate my bringing a gun to campus, and
yeah,
that's gonna be the tagline for this episode. Some people don't appreciate guns on campus.
Might be controversial.
Yeah, hot take.
Yeah.
Hot take.
Now come to my house.
Yeah, exactly.
At night.
Whoever thought anything good would turn out
unsupervised, yes.
Yeah, I also like that, respect to 1989, I guess the foundation wasn't laid yet, where the professor says, well, there's no rules that I can't invite all these kids to my
undergraduates at that.
Undergraduates, yeah. I was going to say that. Yeah. In grad school during the strike, a professor, like, may or may not have held one or two. I didn't not my professor, not saying anybody, but may or may not have held 1 or 2 classes at her home. And like, I feel like that's a bit different if you're in grad school, but undergrads and like first years, maybe there's some boundaries there that shouldn't be crossed.
I was in undergrad classes with like 17-year-olds.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So,
yeah, it's a bit weird.
Yeah, it's a little creepy. Unless
somebody in their like mid-20s is certainly
different,
capable of making a decision and setting a boundary, and is going to have a closer working relationship with a professor anyway.
Exactly.
But yeah, I thought that was super funny. Also, this guy's house was ballerific. What we got to see of it. Xylia really enjoyed the furnace.
Oh,
yeah,
it's so
I was
funny
like,
that you
what
bring
the
that
hell?
up. I was just thinking one of my other favorite parts of this movie almost has nothing to do with the movie at all, but it has to do with the fact that when he goes down to check the pilot light at the end, before they discover that the spectacularly beautifully mulleted man is in there, it made me think of my absolute favorite joke of all time from the Golden Girls. About Dorothy having a pet bird made out of paper and Sophia one day killing it by using it to restart the pilot light. And every time I see a pilot light now, I think of the Golden Girls because I'm demented. So I'm like watching this horror movie and all I can think about is like B. Arthur, and like Betty White and
Xylia.
I don't get it.
Xylia didn't get it.
I didn't get it.
But Xylia also had no idea what was going on with that furnace.
Well, like, I've never seen anybody light a furnace with a match before. Is it like a wood stove? I don't know.
No, but anyway, it's fine. We're not going to get into the sidecast number 19.
Mechanics
of old-fashioned furnaces. Like,
is that what they had on Nightmare on Elm Street?
No, that was even
real,
more. That was like
a wood furnace.
Yes.
Like a wood stove.
Yeah.
Essentially, yes, yeah.
Yeah, this thing was weird. I've just never seen something like that before.
I think we should also talk about Mr. Mullet Man, Mr. I pee my pants in class.
And who hasn't? Like, dude, get
the
over
mullet
it.
was spectacular.
The
mullet was spectacular.
Beautiful. It was actually beautiful. Like, I want to know who did the hair for that movie, because you need a 30-year retroactive raise. Like,
he was just so angry.
He was
angry with
He's
life.
just it's like that masculinity. Like,
also, I'd like to know how he came up with that whole plan. Like, I didn't really get the plan. It was like, I'm gonna hang him by his feet and then light a circle of fire.
And then kind of spin him like a pendulum.
Yeah.
Well, it was almost like you'd be torturing a witch in the 1700s, right? Like,
he's gonna make him throw
I was like, this guy definitely doesn't seem smart enough to figure this out. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I like how then the teacher was like, oh, you were too afraid to do it, and then just fucking kills them. That's creepy.
I was really expecting, I thought maybe that would be the end, and I thought maybe he would get up and then it'd be like, oh, this was all part of the class.
No.
But no, that didn't happen.
I also like that, when they lit the fire and then they went to the point of view where he's, hanging and it's in the fire, the ring is, substantially larger.
Yeah, it was...
Obviously for safety reasons.
Yes, the attention to detail of safety protocols in this movie is just completely rigorous. The whole time I was watching, or rewatching I should say, the second segment when they go in the gas station in that warehouse, I was like, so did Wemyss not exist in the 80s?
No.
Because I was like, there's all these fucking flammable barrels of chemicals just with no
Chilling.
lids on them. They're not labeled.
Yeah.
She's just tipping it over.
Also, if you drive by that gas station, what in the world would make you think that is a running gas station?
There was no lights or anything.
There was one half light flickering on, the building is literally collapsing, and they're like, yeah, this is a good place to get gas. And then they went in as if someone was gonna be in there. It's like, this is obviously an abandoned gas station.
Well, there was somebody in there. They were right.
Yeah.
Technically.
True.
Fine.
Oh my god. But I mean, it's not just the Wemyss details that make that segment problematic. It is all sorts of, we could actually probably spend an entire episode with the like sociological issues happening in that segment, but we won't.
It's
'Cause
true.
It's like those fucking privileged white suburban girls in the like derelict
Fucking
neighborhood.
like run down. Yeah, exactly.
I do want to also talk about where I think the film excels in being, as we classify, a trash film, of the absurdity of this, like, the end and the... So throughout this movie, they're hinting at she's, like, psychic.
I know, that's what I was like, is she psychic?
But they don't really ever, like, go out on a limb and say that. Also, like, some sort of portal opening at the end where, like, she's being sucked into it, but there's no explanation of what's going on.
They're like,
She's
we gotta
all
get
of
rid
a-
of Pam Adlon. Just open a portal.
Yeah, all of a sudden, like, people are just, like, flying in the air.
Oh, yeah, I was like, where's the wind coming from? Like, what's happening?
And then what I absolutely adored was the professor just becoming a skeleton.
Which was clearly the skeleton from Nightmare on Elm Street 3, I'm just saying. They definitely, like, rummaged through the, like, effects.
Yeah, they were like, can we
locker.
borrow that skeleton?
Yeah. And also, speaking of Nightmare on Elm Street links, the whole, like, her getting, like, pulled into the portal and, like, them, like, holding hands.
Yeah.
That's literally straight out of their screenplay for Nightmare on Elm Street 4 when she gets pulled out of the seat in the theater and into the movie. Like,
Yeah,
literally
well,
just, they ripped themselves off.
And people are gonna think I'm ragging on it, like...
Oh, it's not a rag.
I was having
fun.
a lot of fun. Like, and she's, like, basically being pulled into every story, and, like, we have, like...
Yeah, I liked that part.
The head rolling down, which I loved, because when it does the first shot of just the head there motionless, you can see the actress is, like, moving her eyes and her eyelids. And I love when I see things like that. Just the skeleton, the stop motion, I was just like, ugh. I love that look, that stop motion.
I feel like was the stop motion intentional, though, or is it just, like, the graphics back then?
I mean, I would say that they didn't have a budget for anything else.
I don't think they had a budget, period.
Yeah, like... So I'd say that's what they were getting, but I mean, I just thought... It goes into overdrive. You're like, this is absolutely insane. What is going on? But I was having fun.
But it is interesting because it's this, like, just 0 to 60 fucking, like, sharp turn, because the rest of the stories all kind of follow his theme in his class of, like, you have to believe that it could happen. And even though they're kind of stupidly not very realistic, they're not... They are in a way in that there's no, like, supernatural elements or anything like that. It's all, like, people stumbling into the wrong side of town, as problematic as that shit is. Or, like, somebody playing a prank that goes horribly wrong. Like, these are things that do happen or could happen. And same thing, the stalker, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it goes from, like, him saying this is, like, fear is most powerful because you believe it could happen, and then it's this over-the-top, like, fucking psychic dream, skeletons rising, like, necromant, like, what the fuck, right? Like, it just takes such a fucking sharp turn into, like, completely over-the-top absurdity, and I'm just like, it's a choice. It is a bold fucking choice. I might not understand it, but goddamn, I respect it.
And then we got, like, the great ending that, like...
It all makes sense.
That Deus Ex Machina ending. I like, because when I read about it, it told me that was the kind of ending it was. And every time I see that word, I forget what it means. Even though I know what it means, I just never remember what it means.
What does it mean? What are you talking about?
You uneducated swine.
The Deus Ex Machina.
It's like Latin.
Yes.
I was gonna say it's Latin.
It's Latin.
Or as I say, Deus Ex Machina, because...
Listen, it's...
You uncultured swine.
I'm uncultured and can't pronounce anything.
What does it mean?
It's like...
when something happens that
like,
resolves the story and ties up the loose ends, and
like unexpectedly.
just comes out of nowhere, and it was not hinted at, or it has nothing to do with what came previous. Like, it's just something that arrives and saves the day,
like,
or ties up the story. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay, yeah.
I read it has like a weird history too. Like, it has something to do with like God and stuff. And
yes, it usually means a god comes down and saves the day, essentially.
So it's like the ending mean,
yeah, I get it.
yeah,
I get
she
it.
got a premonition.
Yes,
and
it's a very,
movie.
very like the concept of it goes, back to like classical times, right?
Right.
So if you have that premonition, are you?
And in
going
theater,
to that
it's literally
class?
like they would literally lower them down, right? Like a god would descend on ropes.
Of course. Would I go to that class?
After you've had that premonition.
Fuck yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd be like, I'm gonna see this skeleton. Fuck yeah.
I don't know.
Also, the kids were like far scared. Like they were really scared of these stories more than I think they should have been.
I think that if I have had that premonition and then went to that first class and like had seen that it was the start of my premonition, I'd be like, fuck no, I'm not going to this guy's house. Like,
I'd probably go, maybe it'll be different this time.
You guys all have fear fetishes.
Absolutely.
We're getting freaky.
The psychology of fear, man. We got it. We got it bad. It's a bad case.
After midnight, is it scary? Xylia.
Okay, as like dumb as it was, I think some things are kind of like freaky.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like for a kind of like, as I said before, like no budget, probably very hastily written and produced cable outing that people probably only saw at like 1 a.m. or whatever. It had its creepy moments and it had some atmosphere, and like the story, I liked all the stories, even though they had their problems and there was lots of plot holes and stuff, but like, I don't know, I just thought that they had good mood and like a creepy atmosphere.
I agree.
As we reflect, as I said earlier, that it's almost, a year that we've done this podcast, I really want the listeners to understand the transformation in Xylia's tastes as we've been on this journey.
What?
If we had to watch this 2 years ago, Xylia would have been like, what the fuck is this? And I just love that your appreciation of trash has like really grown.
I always liked it.
She's always been into trash.
Yeah, you guys just like paint me as like this, like, oh, I only like.
I was gonna say, don't you guys me, not all men.
Yeah, exactly. Rowan always like paints me as this like, oh, I only like highbrow film or some shit. Like, no, not at all.
Has he ever looked at like some of the art that you've put up in your various abodes over the years? Like, clearly you have a taste for trash. Like,
yeah, catchy stuff. Mm-hmm.
I also appreciate it because where we have to review it, like if I had bought this movie and we didn't have to review it and we didn't have this podcast, Xylia would have literally just looked me in the eyes and been like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Why?
I mean, I do that anyway to you. So.
I do. But I love it. I love that you're coming down to our level a little bit.
Okay.
April Fool's Day was the day. It was the change.
That was the turn of the time.
Ground zero right there was April Fool's Day. So I thank the gods for April Fool's Day.
I'll have to go back and listen to that episode.
And
well, and you're gonna watch it again soon because hopefully, like me, everyone's putting their pre-order in for the Scream Factory
special edition, of course.
Special edition,
beautiful artwork, beautiful gowns.
Yeah, I love it.
I don't know if I'm prepared to watch it again.
Oh no, we will be having a special Skype date and getting hammered and watching it.
I didn't even answer the question, so I don't think it's scary, but I think it's fun. I thought it's fun. I definitely wasn't scared. I don't even know if I was younger if I would find this scary, but it is a great, like Mike had said before, like kind of a great kind of on television. If it was on television, like you'd watch it. Cool little horror flick.
I think, Mike, did you find the third story scary?
I used to have issues with like being scared when I was like by myself because I'd always be picturing similar things happening, like people trying to bust in and attack me. So I found that one scariest of all of them, only because she's so helpless, and that's and it made me think about people who might have like disabilities and stuff, and how like
they're trapped.
Yes, well, I mean, how maybe the system and like staircases and stuff fail them. So it did prompt like lots of thoughts in me about
how nurses opening doors can
But and I have similar work experience as well. So like that I find scary. So I think it kind of comes back to every movie that we review that you can like somehow identify with in real life, you're like, oh, like that's scary.
Absolutely, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Rowan hasn't had that experience yet.
Yeah, I haven't had that experience yet.
Working alone overnight in a creepy place where people call you.
Maybe I have been looking at changing careers into a overnight sex phone worker. So
Oh my god.
maybe.
People always say you have a nice voice.
976 Evil.
Yeah. I'm thinking more like, what was it, like 1-888, like Grapevine? I'll probably catch me on there.
Grapevine. Remember the ads overnight on like cable TV growing up? You don't remember those?
Maybe,
Those were
I
bad.
don't know.
And it would be like a girl walking out of a pool.
Oh,
And it was like-
yes, and they'd go on, and it'd be
random
like a
shit.
full half hour. Like an infomercial
Yes.
almost, but it was just
And they would basically try to promote that it wasn't people, it was only people that called in, and it was like a group conversation of people that called in, but they'd be like, sexy women are also calling in to find a hunk of a man like
yeah,
you.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, you're right.
I totally forgot about that too.
So are we ready to get into the rating of this?
Absolutely.
All right. Mike, you do the honors. It was your pick.
Okay. Obviously, it had problems, and it's not technically a good movie, but I thought it was kind of charming, and the set pieces that they set up for each of the stories were fun and, kind of like simple and classic. So I gave it a solid yay.
Very nice, very nice.
And I just feel like it's the type of movie that they don't really make that much anymore. And I appreciate
you
that.
definitely don't see this anymore. Xylia.
I thought it was like really enjoyable actually. I kind of really liked it.
I'm surprised and very glad, honestly.
I will give it a yay.
Wow. I also, like I said, I had so much fun with it, like, especially in, I think, the day and age when you're watching, like, new horror, like, the last, I'd say, like, 5 to 10 years, like, this kind of horror isn't really appreciated as much anymore, where, like, it's fun, it's funny, and it's just meant to have a good time. I also gave it a yay. Yeah, I think you can watch this by yourself. I think it's a great movie if you're with people. I think this would be really fun to, like, we always talk about, like, drink and watch. And usually we say that when we give it a bad rating. But I think this is, like, fun, period. But yeah, yays all around for After Midnight.
A triple yay.
I will say, going into this, I did not, before I had seen it, I'm like, there's no way this is gonna be any higher than an okay.
Yeah. Fair. I mean, especially if you watched the trailer before watching the movie.
Trailer. Yeah, when I watched the trailer, I was just like,
But it's a pleasant surprise. So it is that time of the budget game.
Jesus.
Okay.
So we will start with what it costs. Xylia, what do you think it costs to make this film?
$250,000.
Xylia is coming in at $250,000.
For once,
Mike.
for once, I'm not highballing it. I'm gonna embarrass X now and say $50,000 or $60,000.
$50,000 or $60,000. If the rules allowed me to, I'd make you both lose. But Xylia is the closest. It cost $3 million to make.
What did they spend the $3 million on?
That skeleton, they spent $1 million busting into New Line Cinema's effects closet for that fucking skeleton. They had to hire somebody to pretend to be a janitor for like 7 months to steal that skeleton.
Now, one thing I didn't bring up while we were talking about the film that I should have.
Great.
No, I was just going to briefly mention one of the students was wearing a real kick-ass concrete comic t-shirt, who is from Dark Horse Publishing, kind of not popular whatsoever. And I was like, that's kind of like weird that she'd be wearing the shirt of a comic character that was only popular for literally like 2 weeks. And I actually read that the production designer of this film was the writer and artist and creator of Concrete.
Oh, that's cool.
So there was actually like a comic book artist as a production designer on this. What do you think?
Did that like put the budget up by $3 million?
No, I don't think that had anything to do. I thought that was a cool little fact. So what do you think it made?
Okay, was this in the theater?
I don't know. I think I would guess it probably got some sort of
limited release.
I would say maybe it made $100,000.
$100,000.
I'm gonna go for 99,000, Alex. Or Bob, whoever it is hosting this awful, non-existent game show.
99,000, he said. So, Mike is gonna take it. So it made...
I'm the asshole betting $1, X, you know that.
Yep.
It made $76,329 at the box office.
That was quite a loss. Yeah.
So I would definitely say it was a...
flop.
I would think this probably most of its plays were like drive-in, like late night.
That would be a sweet movie to see in the drive-in.
And I was thinking while we watched this, me and Xylia keep talking about how we want to get a hold, like there's an independent theater here in Wolfville in Nova Scotia, and like there's people that put on nights where they show films, and we were like saying like we should try like a couple times a year or something, or once or twice a year to like
do a movie.
Do It Slays podcast night with a horror film. And I thought while I was watching this, I'm like, what a good film this would be for the theater.
It is a real, like, kind of drive-in classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
We also actually have a drive-in here, but it's very family-friendly. So...
They probably
drive-in and family do not belong together.
Yeah, no, it's like very family-oriented. So, yeah, It Slays podcast might not be featured there anytime soon.
Yeah, probably not. So I think that's everything, but we do need to announce our next review. So our next review, not only are we going to be revisiting something, but we are also going to have a special guest. We're going to have our near and dear friend Brittany on. She's super funny, and
she's the Olivia Hussey one.
She is the Olivia Hussey that we discussed in the Black Christmas episode.
As long as I'm Margot Kidder.
That's right. Mike will always be Margot Kidder.
I'm the house mother.
Okay, so Rowan is Andrea Martin then.
I'm Billy.
Oh, you're Billy. Yes, that's right. Sorry.
Creepy.
You're the girl with the plastic on her head up in the attic. Claire, yes. No, you're Claire's dad.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, that is exactly who I am. So we will be reviewing last year's Midsummer. We did do a short episode, like it was only 10-15 minutes when me and Xylia saw it in the theater, but we're actually, since it's out on Blu-ray and DVD and you can stream it, that kind of stuff, it's time it gets the proper It Slays treatment. And we really deep dive into it. And, you know, with the combination of Mike and Brittany, Sassy Central.
I was going to say, I was missing from the last episode, so I'll make up for it.
And I believe that is everything for us. So we will see you guys, or we will be talking to you guys in 2 weeks from now. So I think that is everything. As always, I am your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Xylia.
And it's Mike.